It's time to go into business for yourself. Get ready for another episode of the Franchise Academy podcast. Education, insight, and inspiration. Here's your host, small business and franchise expert, Tom Scarda.
Welcome to another episode of the Franchise Academy. I'm so excited. We are launching a new podcast, and I have a co-host with me, Melissa Lewis, and she's the Franchisologist. So we're going to talk every week about franchisology, the study of franchising, everything you ever wanted to know. We're going to talk about it. Mel, welcome.
Thank you, Tom. I'm so happy to be here. And I'm so excited to bring not just our knowledge, but really our friendship and years of knowing each other so that we can build upon that to just launch as many questions and knowledge for all of our viewers.
Yep. I mean, that's what it's all about is education. There's no, franchising is not for everybody. We've learned that over the years. I mean, we were talking offline before. We know each other like 19 years or something like that. You were just a baby. I think it was like an internship out of like junior high school or something.
That's why we're still friends. We see things like that.
So you were working with Maui Wowie Smoothies corporate in Denver, in the Denver Tech Center, and I was a franchisee, one of the first ones of Maui Wowie, and that's how we met.
Yes, and everybody wanted to be like Tom. I mean, you were just a stellar franchisee. You followed the system. You went above and beyond to implement, to build relationships. And the one thing I'll say, Tom, that you've always been so good at is building relationships. I mean, that's what you did so well in your franchise, and that's what you do so well today. It's what it's all about.
Well, cool. Well, thank you. So you made the leap, though. So you're working in the franchise, in the corporate part of the franchisor. You were doing marketing, and then you decided to make the leap to be a franchise consultant. Like, why?
How did I get there? Yes. So, a lot of people ask me that, like, why did you become a franchise consultant? I'm sure you get that question all the time as well. And I was on the franchisor side, and I was so incredibly lucky to get into the franchise industry because it's such an industry, and Tom, you'll probably agree. When people come into it, it either grabs you and you just absolutely love it and you can't get enough knowledge and thirst of this industry, or it's not right for you and you get out pretty quickly. Right. And like you, I knew I wanted to be in this industry. I wanted to live and breathe it, and just that entrepreneurial spirit and watching people be able to live their lives on their terms. I said, that's what I want to do. So I started with Maui Wowie as their director of marketing, and we got all sorts of franchisees coming to us, but the best people, the absolute best franchisees that we had, like Tom, came from Franchoice. And we just knew that they understood business models and not just buying a franchise because the product excited them.
So what do you mean by that? The product excited them. Share more about that.
Sure. So the good news about Maui Wowie Hawaiian, it was a Hawaiian smoothie and coffee company. And it was a very exciting concept. And a lot of franchisees would come in, and I kind of cringe to say this, but in the early days, I sat on the board and the franchisees would come in and I'd say, so why did you join Maui Wowie? And we get so many franchisees that would say, I love smoothies, or I love coffee. Or my second favorite answer was, we went to Hawaii on our honeymoon. And nothing wrong with that, right? Of course, you can love smoothies, you can love Hawaii, but they hadn't thought through the business model.
Right.
I mean, you remember that wasn't a smoothie company. It was a logistics company. I mean, talk about some of the relationships you built with the Javits Center and, Jones Beach and all of that. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So we, Maui Wowie Smoothies, the real idea was a tiki hut on wheels that you could roll into a street fair or a Sweet 16 or a wedding or whatever. I had a grander vision. I contacted the Jacob Javits Convention Center in Manhattan, and lo and behold, they said yes, and they gave me a spot on the show floor. And what Greg said, Greg was the food and beverage manager there. He said, you know, you have all your water and your coffees or whatever, but we want to put this tiki hut right on the show floor between, you know, the technology guy and the payroll company, you know, all that boring stuff. And we have this exciting, colorful thing with it, right? Mm-hmm. So we got there, and it did really well. And he said, hey, you know, the company, I was subcontracting for the company, it's called Centerplate. And they said, well, we have 134 other locations in America. Would you want to work them? I'm like a new franchise owner, new business owner. I'm like, no, I mean, I don't know what. Well, we have Yankee Stadium. How about that? And I'm like, oh my God. It was like the Holy Grail. But I couldn't do it. I was way too busy because then I got other contracts at Jones Beach Theater because I contacted them, Nassau Coliseum for NHL Islander games when the Islanders used to play there. So it was just, all of a sudden I found myself in the middle of the world of food and beverage managers in the hospitality industry. And I just talked to them and said, hey, I got this little cool thing that we could kind of roll in. We could do one show, or we could do every show. We could do one game. We could do every, you know, just the World Series, or we could do every baseball game. So we ended up getting those contracts. We got Candlestick Park when it used to be Candlestick Park. I never forget that, in San Francisco. I mean, we were all over the place. And it was just because we did a good job and we were a franchise. So in later years, and I still talk to this guy, Greg, who's the food and beverage manager there. He now does the Long Island Ducks minor league baseball stadium. He said, the reason I let you in so quickly was because you were a franchise. Ah. You were just Tom Smoothies.
Not gonna happen.
I would be hesitant because I'm like, who's this guy? But because I was backed up by the franchise, that's what got us in.
Wow, that's a fascinating story. So, and how did you find Maui Wowie? Was it the only franchise you looked at, or what was your journey to becoming a franchisee?
Well, not to get too deep, but I really, really wanted a Cold Stone Creamery ice cream franchise. Oh. So now I'm going back to 1999. I was visiting my brother in San Diego, and he's like, I got to bring you to this ice cream store. There's a line out the door every night. So we went, and it was Cold Stone Creamery. I didn't know it at the time, but I was like, this is brilliant. And they had a franchise sign on the window, and I was like, a franchise? I'm going to do this in New York. So I go back home, feeble internet back then, yet I found them, submitted for information. Of course, they didn't contact me. And then I also found that same day Franchoice. And I was like, oh, this is cool. So I ended up connecting with a senior consultant there. Her name is Carol, and she walked me through the process of figuring out really what my needs are, what my wants are, what my skills are, my personality, all this stuff. And she ended up matching me to a few different companies. But the main thing was this Maui Wowie thing. It hit me over the head when she told me about it. But I said to her, and there's one thing I wanted to share, Mel. I don't know if I ever shared this with you. On the initial consultation with Carol, I said to her, hey, I want to buy this. I'm really interested in this Cold Stone Creamery. Do you know it? She goes, yeah, of course I know it. She said, first of all, it wouldn't be a good fit for you because it's over your budget. It's $350,000 to open up an ice cream store. I was like, wow. She goes, yeah, your budget's $100,000, so that's not going to happen. She said, but even if you had the money, I would vehemently try to talk you out of it because their franchise agreement is lopsided. I'm like, what? What does that mean? And so she explained to me that they had these exorbitant fees to the franchise owner, which really the franchise company was making money, but the franchisees were not making great money, especially in colder climates like the Northeast where I live. And so I was like, okay, you said enough, and that was it. But this Maui Wowie thing, that was a $70,000 investment at the time, and it didn't need a store, so it was these tiki huts, and so that was interesting.
It's kind of more of a logistical business and building those relationships, and that was, that's so interesting because that was kind of a key indicator to me, or just this like defining moment when I was seeing all of these people come to us, and the people from franchise, they were so much more knowledgeable and they understood the business and the challenges by talking to franchisees, and they had run numbers. And I remember saying to myself, that's what I'm going to do someday. I want to help more people get out of this corporate rat race and to make educated, informed decisions based on the business that's going to help them, right? That's going to fit their skills and their family and their goals, not just the product. Because I think what you and I have learned after doing this so long, there's nothing wrong with enjoying the product, but you can't make your business decision based on that. You have to make an analytical decision, follow the process and learn everything. And then you can follow your heart. But if you follow your heart first and you don't look at the analytical side and follow the process and run the numbers, you're typically in for a scary surprise.
Well, I totally agree. I mean, that's my mantra all day long, and I know it's yours too, as we speak to candidates. And I'll share a quick story. I know you heard this before, but early in my career, I was working with these two guys who got laid off from Wall Street. And, it was one of my first deals. And these two guys said to me, we want to get into a and golf franchise because we love golf.
Oh, I hear that all the time.
and I was like, why do you love golf? I can help you get into a golf franchise, but it's going to be like a golf, retail. You're going to be selling golf equipment and tennis equipment in a mall. You're not going to be on the ninth green on the turn, waiting for your friends with a cold beer. No, not at all.
No.
And in about 6 months, you're probably going to end up hating golf because you're trying to pay your mortgage with it. I said, how about if you follow the process that we have here, and maybe we can find you a business that'll give you all the time and the money in the world so you could golf to your heart's content. How does that sound? And they agreed grudgingly. They're like, all right, let's give this a shot. We went through the process. They ended up buying into an in-home healthcare company. And when I last spoke to them, my bad, it's probably a year and a half ago, they were killing it. They were playing golf, not only where they live on Long Island, but they were playing golf all over the world now.
Yes. I think that's the key. If there was any knowledge that I would share with people, it would be the business should be a vehicle to get you where you want to get to, right? So to provide the income and the time to enjoy those passions. Because you're right, if you're getting up and you got to be at the golf course at 4 a.m. and you're leaving at 10 p.m. and you're working all the time and you've got low margins, and all of a sudden you realize, I don't golf anymore. Or a business, maybe it's not the most exciting business out there, right? Those are kind of our favorites, but it is a steady Eddie, strong business model that withstands different economies. And it gives you, after a lot of hard work, of course, but it gives you that time, that flexibility, that income to golf or travel or see your kids or coach baseball.
But look at it. I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Mel, of course, because you're Mel. But you're building a lifestyle. That's what a business is. And it's so important to distinguish. I love the analogy that I stole from somebody down the road. Having a job is like renting an apartment. Having a house, owning a house is like owning a business. An apartment could disappear like that. Landlord comes, you got to move, you're out.
You're in control.
Or whatever, right? But in a house, it's yours. But it's expensive. You need a down payment. And then when something breaks, it's on you, right?
Right. You got to get through that honey-do list and spend your weekends fixing up.
But fast forward down the road 10 years, 15, 20 years, you double, triple your money. You're building equity. And that's what you want to do with a business. You want to build equity. Because with a job, you get laid off, you're retired, maybe you get a little severance or whatever, but you're out the door with really nothing to show for all the work and building your boss's dream or the owner of the business's dream instead of your own dream. So you're getting, just a couple of bucks to give up your time. You're trading your time for money. Where in a franchise, you kind of hit this thing head on and You build it. It's tough. But it was you who told me a long time ago, your first day in a job is your safest. Every day you're there in that job, it gets less safe. Your first day in the business is the least safe day. And every day you're there, it gets safer and safer as you build your customer base.
It's so true. That was good advice.
Great advice, Mel. So I want to thank you for doing this. This is your idea to do this podcast. We're going to do them every week. This is going to be phenomenal. I am so excited for next week's podcast.
Me too. Thank you, Tommy. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mel. And Franchisologist. What's your website?
It's franchisologist.com.
Franchisologist.com. You're based in Sarasota, Florida, and I am in New York, right outside of New York City. I know you can't hear that in my voice, but we'd love to help you if you're thinking about a franchise. If you're thinking about just what can I do if I keep my job? Can I build something on the side? Maybe we can help you with that. I'm not sure, but let's have a conversation. Reach out. All our contact information is on the website at thefranchiseacademy.com. Thanks, everyone. Be safe.
This has been another episode of the Franchise Academy Podcast. For more info, go to our website, thefranchiseacademypodcast.com. Remember to subscribe to Tom Scarda's YouTube channel for educational videos on franchising, education, insight, and inspiration.